In the Black Ops multiplayer, we've got quite a few optic attachments, and there's 25 of them to be exact. So we're going to go over which ones are the best ones to use for mainly ARs, SMGs. Before we move on, I do want to quickly mention that snipers and marksman rifles do have a couple of different optics that are not shared between the standard rifles in the game. And that's why we're not including these ones, because these are kind of personal preference. Getting straight into it, we're going over the kind of base optics, the ones that give you no zoom but give you a slightly clearer sight picture. And as you can see on screen, we've got 6 of them right now. And the cleanest ones will be the ones that have the least clutter on the screen. And I'll show you which ones have the most and least clutter as we go through this. But as you can see here, the Merlin, the Kepler, and the Volsky, or however you call that, those are probably going to be the best 3. I'm now showing you how much screen real estate these optics actually take up, and as you can see, my favourites are the Merlin and the Kepler, but obviously that Volsky one does pretty well too, in terms of not taking up too much of your screen space. So moving on to the next set of optics, these provide no additional zoom, similar to the previous set. However, these bump the gun up at a slightly higher level, so as you can see, the space between the gun and the actual optic picture itself, there's a lot of space in between that, which is making the gun look a lot lower down, so that's why I've put them in a separate category. But nonetheless, the cleanest ones out of these couple of options here are the Accu, the Dobrik. Now, like I said, I probably prefer some of the previous options because none of these are particularly my favourite, but if you had to pick between one of these options, then I do think that they're all relatively okay, to be honest. There's nothing too clutterful about any of them in particular, so you can definitely use these. But the next set of optics here provide a 0.25x zoom, so slightly higher zoom than the previous optics we've all just mentioned. And these ones are all round, which kind of makes it easier to compare. But when it comes down to which one has the least amount of clutter on it, the Kepler is definitely the best. So if you are looking for this slightly extra zoom level, go for the Kepler option. It's definitely going to be the better choice, just because it doesn't clutter your screen nearly as much. Next up, we have what I like to call the low zoom category. This is anything between a 1, a 1.5, and a 2x zoom on your optics. I don't think any of these are particularly nice, to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. Now, the ideal thing about this Black Ops game in particular is you can change the reticles on most of these optics anyway, and for that very reason, I do think the Jason 2x optic is the cleaner version out of all of these. As you can see, it's perfectly round. There's no additional things to take up the screen space. The other ones are relatively clean as well, to be honest, but I just think the sight picture is slightly better, and also you do get a slightly higher zoom level as well. So last but not least, we have what I like to call the mid-zoom optics, anything between a 3 and a 5 times optic. And as you can see here, we've got the 4 times at the top, the 3 times at the bottom, and in terms of the 4 times optics, none of these are great. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't think any of these are good. Plus, you get a lot of visual recoil on these. That's one thing I do want to mention. You do get a lot of visual recoil, especially on a fully automatic gun when you go for the higher zoom optics, like the 4 times, for example. When it comes to the bottom 2 options as well, the 3 times optics, I do think the Willis is the slightly better choice here, just because the sight picture is slightly larger. That's just my personal preference there, but both are relatively clean optics as well. So if you do prefer the kind of more squarish optics, then that is definitely your preference. But when it comes to the 4 times, I'd stay away from these as far as possible. I don't recommend them whatsoever. One thing I do want to mention is that there is 2 hybrid optics. There's a pinpoint and the Prisma. The R&K is just far too long of a zoom for even the base, in my opinion, for a rifle. So I don't really recommend this one whatsoever. But the other 2 are relatively decent. You can give them a go. I don't like hybrid optics. It's just my personal preference. But if you do like them, there's only 2 options to play around with. So there we have it. Those are the best optics inside Black Ops 6. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.